News. The Chamber of Pharmacy Ghana and the Pharmaceutical Manufacturers Association of Ghana threatened to withdraw supplies to regional medical stores and health facilities funded by the National Health Insurance Authority if they fail to honor their indebtedness to its members. According to the groups, the public health facilities owed their members 12 months of pharmaceutical supplies. Joining me via Zoom is the Executive Secretary of the Pharmaceutical Manufacturers Association, Lucia Addae, for more on this development. Thanks so much for your time this evening, Lucia.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Good evening to your cherished viewers.
Great. So effective July 1 is the deadline for payment. If not, you're going to withdraw your services. How much are we talking about here?
Okay, so before we go into the details, I believe that it's very important to put this in perspective.
Right.
So there are some of these regional medical stores that are owing us over 300 million cedis, and they've been owing us for over 12 months. So what is happening is that Ministry of Finance gives some money to the NHIS, and then the NHIS gives the money to these health facilities. And for some of the regional medical stores, they get their funding from government. But some of them have become recalcitrant. So what they are doing is that they don't pay us our money, and they always expect you to actually supply more and more. So what we are saying is that for us to be able to supply, is either you pay for your old debt or you give us some form of bank guarantee. Because we can't keep supplying you. We already have a lot of challenges. Some of the companies are actually facing collapse. And I believe now more than ever that it's very important to safeguard the pharmaceutical industry. We know what is happening with COVID. We know that it's important to ensure that supply chain is actually very stable. So to have some of these organizations borrow money of up to 30%, huge interest rate, bring in raw materials, manufacture, give you the products, and it takes you maybe a year or two to pay, I think it is not fair to some of the companies. So if we are saying that we want to support the companies and support the pharmaceutical industry, it is important that if you owe us, you pay. That's what we are saying.
Yeah, Lucia.
We're not going to make sure that there are medicines available. We are going to make sure that medicines are available on the open market, and then people will be protected and safe. Right,
Lucia, as 300 million cedis, you say that's quite a lot. Have you been engaging these institutions, and what have they been telling you with difficulties as to why they can't pay you?
So we've been engaging the institutions, the various stakeholders. This debt is spanning for cumulatively over 5 years. So what happens is that you go to the facilities, they tell you that they have not received their monies from NHIS. Now, because there's no transparency in the system, it's difficult to track as to how much and when these facilities are actually paid. So they can, in effect, use the money for other things and then pay you when it's suitable to them, which is not fair. Because it's important to support the pharmaceutical industry, the pharmaceutical manufacturers, to ensure that we can always have medicines available and at affordable prices for the citizens of the country.
I have heard this story before. It's not the first time you're going after them to pay you and threatening to withdraw your services if they do not pay. But you say 12 months, one would say, okay, it's a lot, but it's also just 1 year. Have you considered the implications, especially when we're having to deal with, critical issue like COVID-19? Government is having to put a lot of money in there. Have you considered the implications on the country before issuing this threat?
Okay, so I believe it's important to paint this picture that the companies are facing collapse. So we can either keep quiet and have some of the companies collapse, or we can speak up and then see what can be done. Now, more than 1 year, up to 5 years. So obviously there's been a lot of engagement with various stakeholders. This is not the first time. But it's important that now that there's a pandemic, there should be that support for the industry, because the industry is key. It's key. And so it's important to protect the pharmaceutical industry. And this is all we are asking for. And I believe there are other stakeholders that have come out to say that you can give us a stimulus package, but give us the money that you owe us first, and then you can speak of a stimulus package. Because at the end of the day, this is how much money you owe us.
I assume that you are supplying some drugs that are being used for treatment for COVID-infected patients. And is that likely not to be affected?
No, that is likely not to be affected. So what we are saying is that for medicines that will be paid for medicines for pandemic and all the likes, it will be available. So there will be medicines on the open market, cash and carry, you'll be able to access it. But if there's a client who is recalcitrant, who is not paying us on time, then what we are saying is that it will be difficult to supply you effective 1st July because our businesses are going down. And we need these businesses to do well to be able to protect the citizens of the country.
Right. So are you asking for the total debt? You said 300 million. Are you asking for all to be settled, or if they make some part payments, you'll be able to make some consideration sort of?
So the consideration is that if we are paid up to, let's say, so the debt should not exceed 3 months. So if we are paid, we are in June, by July, we are paid up to about March, April. I think that should be fair for the companies to be able to survive. If not, it becomes difficult, and it means that we are going to have to borrow at high interest rates, and that means we are going further down, and most of the companies would collapse. We don't want that, I believe. So we believe that with this engagement and with these platforms, we'll be able to have some results.
All right, I pray that they listen to you and make some payment, and you also reconsider your decision to withdraw services. Lucia, thanks so much for joining me tonight on Business. We move on.